Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Jim Kleiber Show. Today is Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. I hope that let's see if this stays. Yeah, let's see. Is the Ethernet still working? Turned off the Wi-Fi and trying to do Ethernet. Anyways, February 2nd, 2021, here in the United States, it is known as Groundhog's Day, which means there is a groundhog in Pennsylvania. I think it's called Punxsutawney Phil, who obviously is not the same one throughout the years, but the Punxsutawney Phil, the 22nd or however many iterations of Punxsutawney Phils we're on now, comes out and looks, and if he can see his shadow, I believe he forecasts another 6 weeks of winter. And if there is no shadow, then there is no 6 weeks of winter. But from all that I know in terms of how the Earth rotates around the sun, that winter still goes on for another 6 weeks anyways, until March 21st. I think it's March 21st. And so that's today. There's a movie that was made about Groundhog's Day with Bill Murray many years ago. I haven't seen it. I think it came out in the 90s. But it was about a day that just keeps repeating and repeating and repeating itself. So people on Twitter are having fun with this idea of, they said, wait, today's Groundhog's Day? So what was it the last 9.5 months? I think 9.5 months. I think it's been longer than 9.5 months. Oh, but these days just seem to be repeating themselves. But not. Life has changed. Things do come, things do go. I was watching 60 Minutes this weekend. It's a famous kind of journalism, in-depth reporting show that we have in the U.S. It's been going on for many, many years. It comes on once a week. And I think it was 60 Minutes that was talking to people who have lost people to COVID-19. And kind of this idea of going back to normal is not going back to normal for them. There are many people who have lost loved ones to this, directly or indirectly. And again, whether that's through COVID-19 or whether that's through a suicide because of a lost job or whether that's through drug overdose or alcohol overdose or just estrangement, or there's many ways in which our lives have irrevocably changed. And yeah, so this idea of going back to normal for many is not really going back to normal. So I think being separated from so many others, physically and socially and emotionally, sometimes we forget what other people are going through. So there was just a coup that happened in Myanmar. So I can't imagine what citizens over there are feeling. Apparently the U.S. the U.S. State Department just sent out a warning that Tanzania is experiencing very high COVID-19 now. On the scale of, I think they have like maybe 0 to 4 or 0 to 5 on in terms of risk. The State Department said it's the highest level of risk right now in Tanzania. So I worry for my friends out there and their families. It's just, there's so much so much going on in the world. Ooh, I should have had that drink of water. So much going on in the world, and I'm not sure about you, but I know I can have a tendency to try to jump in and want to fix things, want to change things. I look at what's happening with the vaccine rollout in the U.S. and I'm like, oh, what can I do to fix this? Or, even when I was living in Los Angeles, I'd get stuck in traffic and I'd be like, oh, these are idiots. They didn't design traffic well. What could I do to fix this? I see friends and family fighting with each other. What can I do to fix this? I see kind of the protests happening in the U.S. around racial inequality. And I go, what can I do to fix this? And I think I can get so stuck in my head trying to fix things. Trying to fix other people, trying to fix systems, trying to fix things. And you know what? I try to remind myself that even if I do fix things, it may not last very long. You know, even even if magically I came up with a way to help every single human being on the planet feel connected to themselves and to other people, to really live in peace, harmony, love, to be able to resolve any conflict, come back and feel very connected to other people. Even if I can come up with a way to basically help every single human being resolve all the conflict that they're struggling with in life and build the skills to resolve the conflict that they'll struggle with in the future. An asteroid could come and destroy the planet. You know? I guess maybe therefore, then we would die in peace. But there's just, I guess you could talk about Elon Musk and wanting to go to Mars and trying to avoid the asteroid destroying human civilization, human species. But yeah, I just, it's almost like no matter how hard we try, we will never fix everything. There are always going to be things that are broken. There are always going to be relationships that are estranged or distanced. There are always going to be fights and conflict. There's always going to be some type of disagreement and hatred, and it's always going to exist. And again, even if it doesn't, then, life may end anyways from some other thing, So when I reframe it this way, one, I feel a lot more relaxed, like, oh, I don't have to save the world, and I think a lot of people, even if we don't get caught up in the mindset of saving the quote unquote world, we may get caught up in saving the people that we care about. We see that our child or our parent or our sibling is going astray, and we want to give them advice, and then they don't listen to the advice, and then we get really angry, and maybe we even distance ourselves from them. Or we become more forceful for them to change because we're trying to help them. We're actually trying to take care of them, but it doesn't seem to work. And it seems to wreak havoc on our lives as well, this idea that thinking that we can change them. Because when we realize that we can't, or we don't change them as much as we want to, then we can get really, really, really frustrated. Constantly thinking, oh, what could I do to make this person care about me? What could I do to make this person have a stronger career? What can I do to make this person feel more motivated? What can I do to make this person feel less resentful? What can I do to make this person feel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Yeah, I know I'm not the only one who thinks this. Maybe there's some people who don't try to influence how other people feel at all, or influence what other people are doing at all. I doubt it. I doubt that there's a person that doesn't try to influence another person in any way. Maybe there are some people who aren't trying to influence the world, like I said, or influence strangers, or influence, et cetera, but maybe they're trying to influence somebody they really care about. I think a lot of times the people that we feel closest to are the ones that we try to save, We try to guide them in the direction that we think will be best for them, but really it's the direction that we think was best for us, and we think it worked for us, therefore we give them advice to try to make it work for them. Sometimes, like this situation with COVID-19 here in the US, sometimes I want to have, I'm somewhat stuck because I want to say, you do your own thing. I don't really care what you do. It's your own thing. But the problem is, and maybe I talked about this on the show before, is that's more of the attitude of like playing a solo sport, maybe golfing or tennis, even though those aren't really solo so much as you still have trainers and caddies and things like this. Or track and field, where you're running, but you still have trainers and other, but it's more solo. Compare that to a team sport. If I'm playing football, I can't really American football, I can't really say to the guy, I just do what you want to do. I don't really care. Because if he doesn't block, I may get really hurt. Somebody may hit me from the blind side and I might get really injured. Or, think about it as in a work project. Sometimes at work, we're able to work independently and by ourselves, mostly independently. But a lot of times we're on team projects. And if the teammate doesn't do their job, then we all suffer. I think this happens a lot in schoolwork. I can remember being on team projects in school, and I hated them so much because, say there were 4 people on the team, there was often there was me who really wanted to do a really good job on the project and really wanted to get a good grade, like cared so much about good grades and really focused on that. There were other people who could care less about the class. Maybe there's one person who just really slacked off and didn't really care at all. There's another person who was very stubborn and adamant, but I think was going in the wrong direction. And then there was another person who didn't really understand the material, perhaps, but wanted to contribute, but didn't really know what they were doing. And I'm not trying to say that I always knew what I was doing, but this is just one example. I think it happened a lot to me. And those projects would frustrate me because I couldn't really say, okay, you do what you want to do. It's fine. Like, you have your own decisions, your own choices, and I'll do mine. Because if they decided not to work on the project, and the project required that all 4 people contributed, then I would get a worse grade. If they took the project in a direction that I didn't think was very good, maybe it would be hard for me to also contribute, and maybe we would or wouldn't get a good grade. It relied on teamwork, right? Relied on us working together, coming together, resolving the conflict, and being united, at least in trying to solve the problem. And it still rubs me the wrong way sometimes. And I don't know, I try to think about that in the context of changing the world or saving the world or changing others or influencing others. And I think there are some situations where it's not necessarily influencing others. It's about resolving the conflict with others and not resolving it by agreeing to go separate ways. Sometimes there are conflicts that we can't just say, okay, listen, you want this and I want this and it's not going to work. Boom, let's go different ways. I think I've had a tendency to go in that direction where it's like, listen, we're just incompatible and it's okay. Like, you want this and I want this and that's okay. I think in some ways that works in some scenarios, and I think in other scenarios it doesn't work so well. Because what if you both want 99 of the same things, and then there's one thing that you really just don't agree on? Now, could that make you really incompatible? How do we resolve that conflict without necessarily just kind of going away? It's a tricky challenge, huh? I think sometimes it can really plague me. I'm not sure about you, but maybe we all have different kind of conflict strategies. I think a lot of times my situation is, for me to maintain my love and care for that person, a lot of times I have to walk away from the situation. Like, I understand that you want to go in this direction, and that's fine. I don't want to go in that direction, so I'm going to go somewhere else, and you can stay and go in that direction if you want. And I think other people have the tendency to stay there, even if they don't want to go in that direction, and grow resentment. Like, oh, this person's taking us in this direction. I don't want to go in that direction, but I'm not going to leave because I said I would stay, and so I'm going to stay the whole time. But I really just don't like the direction that we're going in, but I'm not going to say anything because it's not my place to say anything. If I say anything, it'll just lead to conflict, and so I'm just not going to say anything. I'll sit here and be quietly resentful. People don't normally say that, but I think a lot of people do that. Then you have there's the conflict, and some people will get loud and try to force the other person to, sometimes we'll try to force the other person to agree with what we're doing. And not just passively agree, but actively agree. So if we want, it can happen in relationships where one person wants to have kids and the other person doesn't. Well, one person may try to convince the other person that they want to have kids and actively kind of push. But come on, you really want to have kids. Like, do you want to grow up when you're old? Do you want to look back and say, man, I wish I had kids? Like, it could be one of the biggest regrets in your life. Boom, 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 boom. There could be so many arguments for this and against. But sometimes we, in conflict, will try to convince the other person because we want to maintain that relationship. We want to maintain the situation that we're in. And so we may try to flip that person's mind or perspective so that they stay and agree. So not that they stay and passively disagree, but so that they stay and actively agree. What else? And this is something my parents have talked to me about a lot. It's this idea of compromising. I saw a chart on this the other day, and I wish I could remember it, but there was something that was even more powerful than compromising. It was where you both actively are excited about what you've come up with together. It was cooperation, I believe, like a collaboration or cooperation. And I think we can get there. I think it's a lot of effort. I know from myself, when it comes to a lot of conflict, I will, maybe it's almost like an agree to disagree, where I agree to disagree and then I leave. Fine, this is where you want to go. Fine, I'm going to go this direction. Good. I know this happens a lot. I think this happened a lot when I lived in Tanzania, and we'd go out to the club with my roommates and housemates and stuff. I'd say, I want to go to this club. And they'd say, no, let's go to this club. And there was one girl that really tried to get everyone to go to the same place. And I was like, fine, if you want to go to that club, go to that club. I'm going to go to this club. I want to go listen to live music. And there aren't a lot of times where I can listen to live music in Tanzania from this band that plays this fantastic stuff. They called it bolingo in Tanzania, but other place calls it suku. Some place calls it, what do they call it in Kenya? I can't remember. But I think they call it Lingala in Kenya. No, I don't know what they call it. Basically, it's like this Congolese influenced music that made its way to Tanzania. They had some live bands, and I loved listening to them. But it was hard for me to convince other people in the house to go. And so a lot of times I'd say, fine, go wherever you want to go. I'm going to go listen to this band. And so I think sometimes I've had that default conflict resolution strategy. What's been your default strategy? And does it vary? Do you have one strategy when it comes to work and a different strategy when it comes to romantic relationships, and a different strategy when it comes to kind of sibling or parent or children relationships, and a different one when it comes to strangers? I don't know. I'm just fascinated. What are our default kind of conflict resolution strategies? In other situations, I definitely try to convince people. Oh, I can get kind of overbearing and like, no, but really, how can you believe it like that? You have to believe it like this. So don't you see this point? What about this point? How about this? And I can go really in depth with that. Yeah, I don't know. It's just something that I'm reflecting on right now as I think about what's going on in the world, and I think about how I have a desire to reach out and change things, but I also have that strong desire to just say, you do you, I'll do me, and we'll be fine. And I think over this last year, especially, thinking about how that you do you and I'll do me strategy doesn't work very well when we're in a global pandemic where viruses can spread rapidly from one person to another. So those people, you do you and I'll do me. But the problem is, if they're doing them and they're spreading the virus, then me, I can't do much. Like, if I want to avoid the virus, I can't go out much because the virus is everywhere. And so as much as I want to say, hey, if you want to go to the club and you don't want to wear a mask and you want to do whatever you want to do, I don't really care if it impacts you. I just care if it impacts me in some ways. That doesn't work so much when we're in a much more, when we're on a team, when we're working on a team project and we have to stay on the team project. One comment, I was raised to avoid conflict at all costs. Yeah, me too. I wonder, in which ways were you raised to avoid conflict? Were you raised to avoid conflict by being quiet and just not saying something? Were you raised to avoid conflict by leaving, kind of breaking up the relationship and going to a different place? Were you raised to avoid conflict by leaving, maybe not physically, but with your attention, So instead of, as conflict starts to bubble, you just turn to a different spot. Maybe you turn on the TV or the radio or a video game, or you go out for a run, or you do something. I wonder who resolves conflict really well in terms of this idea of getting back to not just compromise, but strong collaboration and cooperation in resolving the conflict. Because sitting here, like I said, it's right now with COVID-19, with the medical challenges and the financial challenges and the social challenges we're facing around the world right now, we're on a team project. And if we want to try to solve it ourselves, it doesn't really work so well. We almost have to work together to try to come up with some solution that works for us all. Yeah. I don't know. I think I've taken this approach of, I think I've really taken a kind of, intellectually, I've tried to solve things and like been very frustrated with myself for not trying to do more to resolve the conflict overall. And physically, I've basically just taken, or the emotionally, I've taken the, I'll just wait. I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting for this to end. Just waiting for other people to resolve the conflict. Or again, trying to run away and being separate, not with these other people. I don't know. Do you try to change the world? Do you try to change others? Do you let them do what they want to do, but then secretly get resentful that they're not doing what you want them to do? Oh, man. I don't know. I think resolving, like properly resolving conflict is hard. It's really hard work. It requires us sometimes to go really deep on who we are, what we want, what we believe, how we're feeling. And it could be a lot more intimate than we necessarily want it to be. Sometimes we don't want to get to that level with other people. We don't want to tell them why we're truly afraid of what's going on, or why we're so angry and what hurt us so deeply. Because sometimes it's not, okay, I'd say most of the time, it's not just the conflict that we're currently facing. There's lots of unresolved conflict that we've had from the past that comes out. So if we have a tremendous amount of fear of COVID-19, maybe that fear is rooted in trauma that we've had in the past because maybe one of our relatives died of a disease, of a viral disease. For me, I had malaria 3 or 4 times when I was living in East Africa, and it scared the hell out of me. And I knew people who died from malaria in Tanzania. And Ebola was not very far away. Ebola was in Congo. And I've been in Uganda when Ebola was in Congo, which borders, Congo borders Tanzania as well. So just the fear that Ebola was going to spread there. I have friends who have friends in, friends who are from Liberia in West Africa, where there was a lot of Ebola going around and people dying from that. And that's not even getting at maybe the deeper. Again, there's probably deeper reasons why I'm so afraid of this. It's the fear of getting it and giving it to my parents and having my parents die. It's the fear of losing my parents. It's the fear of losing people that I've never, the people that I've known my whole life, just gone. So there's a lot there. there's a lot, and I think sometimes resolving conflict, we don't want to go to that level. We try to stay at the superficial stuff or the topical stuff, and no, we don't really resolve the conflict so much because we don't get to the root of why we're feeling the things we're feeling. Let's see, we have a comment. Switzerland is all about compromise and conflict resolution. This was a result of intensive wars for hundreds of years. Yeah, sometimes you get to the point where it's just too much and you try to resolve the conflict afterwards because you just can't deal with all the fighting. My question about Switzerland, just because of things I've heard about Switzerland, is that Switzerland is quite divided, though. I've heard this could be false, but I've heard that the cantons, the cantons, I think, are like the provinces or states within Switzerland, are quite separate from the other ones, and there's quite a lot of autonomy, therefore not a lot of cooperation amongst them. I could be wrong, but it's the impression I get that is that a lot of the strategy to resolve the conflict in Switzerland has been to say, you do you, I'm going to do me, we're going to be separate, and yeah. But it's federal system, okay. Then maybe this is just my stereotyping of things that I've heard, that Switzerland can be quite I don't like the term balkanization, but like strong independence, and there, and maybe that's fine for again, I don't think it's necessarily a wrong strategy to resolve conflict. Sometimes it is best for groups to break up in some ways, or to have more autonomy and independence, because there are irreconcilable differences or compatibilities. And I think on this show, I'm trying to challenge myself in that, because I think that's been my default strategy. I'm just going to go do my own thing. You do whatever you want to do. I'm going to do my own thing. So I think I'm curious to learn more about Switzerland and other countries as well, in different regions, in different cultures, for how they've resolved conflict and not resolved conflict. So that's the end of the show today. It's been 30 minutes. I definitely need a sip of water if I'm trying to stay attuned to what I want and what I need. But grateful to have you join me today. Hope that it helped you reflect a little bit on your conflict resolution go-to style, and just think about some of the other styles. Again, I don't think one is right or one is wrong. I think in different scenarios, different ones are helpful, and just to be more aware that there are other strategies and other ways for us to work together, and to go after what we want and feel how we want, and have the relationships in our lives work for us and for other people. On that note, I am going to lean back into my cloudy astrological abyss, whatever this thing is, and talk to you soon.